Let's just take a look at a few of the things that have been going on around here at High Performance Academy over the last week. And for those of you who have been following us for a while now, you will know that we are in the midst of doing a build-up on a Nissan R32 GTR. Now for us here in New Zealand and for our followers over in Australia or in Japan, then these are a pretty common sight. Particularly for those of you joining us from the US, then these aren't a car that you're probably going to see that often on your local roads. The R32 GTR was one of Nissan's original supercars powered by the RB26. We've modified several of these over the years, and I was also involved with the tuning of the Heat Treatments GTR, which did hold the world record for a fairly long time with the fastest four-wheel drive time on the drag strip. I think it got down to a 7:41, ran as high as about 193 mile an hour off the top of my head. So we know these cars and these engines reasonably well. Interesting thing is that in stock form, the R32 GTR actually doesn't really impress, and particularly by modern four-wheel drive standards, the four-wheel drive system is actually pretty archaic and pretty slow to respond. It's not the stock car that people get excited about though, it's the potential when you start modifying the engine, modifying the car and improving the power. That RB26 engine really does respond. So I'm just going to go over a couple of the parts that we have got that we've just received this week. So first of all, we have selected a turbo for our build here. This is the Borg-Warner EFR8374 turbocharger, and again, just about every popular turbocharger out there that's on the market right now has been tested and tried on the R32 GTR. The reason we've gone with the 8374, it's certainly not the biggest turbo out there on the market, but the 8374 we feel is going to be a perfect compromise between getting really good boost response and low RPM torque and performance, but also giving us the power level that we're sort of aiming for. And ultimately, once we've got the engine built in this car, we're expecting to be somewhere north of about 500 kilowatts at the wheels. And the interesting thing is that there is a lot of debate in GTR tuning circles around the single turbo versus twins discussion, and obviously the original RB26 has always been fitted with factory twin turbos, so a lot of purists think that that's the only way to modify an RB26. Of late though, we've seen a real shift and the aim now towards going towards a single turbo. There's been several back-to-back tests that have shown that a correctly sized twin turbo actually gives you the best of both worlds. You tend to get better boost response, better low RPM torque, but also an improvement in high RPM performance. There's those that will also argue that some of the reasons why the factory twins or modified low mount twins are held back is due to the plumbing of those turbos and the limitations around the packaging. That's not an argument that we're going to get into here, but we have obviously gone with the 8374. There's a couple of things I just wanted to talk about that are particular to the 8374 we are fitting. First of all, it has just come over to us from Hypertune in Australia, where it's been modified with a clamp style inlet and outlet. It's also obviously had a 90-degree fitting welded onto the compressor outlet, just again for our packaging purposes. So these clamps, which I'm just going to show you here in a little bit more detail, these are used for the intake pipe to the turbocharger as well as all of our intercooler junctions, and these are modelled off the fairly well-known 8L Wiggins clamps, and what they are is a weld ferrule that goes onto our intercooler pipes, and these seal with an O-ring. These basically both go together, and then there is a clamshell that goes over the top of these. So the advantage of this style of clamp is that once it's done up correctly, it's essentially impossible for an intercooler pipe to pop off. And there's probably a bunch of you out there watching right now that at some point in your life, if you've got a turbocharged car, will have experienced an intercooler hose popping off. It's never a good time and usually happens at the most inopportune moment. So we're going with a set of these clamshell clamps on all of the fittings on the turbocharger, the intercooler and also the plenum. Another couple of aspects just about these Borg-Warner EFR turbochargers that really make the packaging quite a lot nicer. They are fitted with an internal recirculating blow-off valve, and while a lot of people don't like this because it means you can't go and fit your flashy aftermarket blow-off valve somewhere on your intercooler plumbing. In terms of simplifying the packaging, it just doesn't get any easier than that. So we've actually just got this removed at the moment because the turbocharger has just had these flanges welded to the compressor. So obviously we don't want the plastic recirculating blow-off valve components in there while it was nice and hot. The other aspect here, which again we've got taken off, there's a mounting flange you can see here, which is where the boost control valve is situated, and there's also a pressure port which goes hand in hand with that boost control valve. So there's quite a few features actually included on the turbocharger. While the price of the EFR turbos is a little bit higher, we actually take into account you're not going to need an aftermarket blow-off valve, you're not going to need a boost control solenoid. That actually simplifies things. The other aspect is for those who are really looking at analysing the performance of their turbocharger. We've got this little port that we can see here on the compressor cover, and this allows really simple fitment of the Borg-Warner EFR turbo speed sensor kit. And traditionally, getting a turbo speed sensor fitted to your turbo was incredibly difficult and quite expensive. This gives you the option, if you want to fit that additional kit, you simply purchase the turbo speed sensor, take the compressor cover off, and you drill out the end of this port. It'll give access to the compressor wheel, bolt everything in there, and you're good to go. Obviously, you're going to also need a data logger, ECU, or a gauge setup that's going to allow you to see turbo speed. And if we flip everything over here, the other aspect that is worth mentioning here is that we have gone with a split pulse exhaust housing. So this is a T4 flange on the inlet, and it's a V-band on the outlet. Now the split pulse housing allows the exhaust manifold design to be used to help aid in spool up, and in order to do this, we're basically taking advantage of the order that the exhaust pulses will enter the exhaust manifold, and this has proven, compared to an open housing, to give a small improvement in our boost response. So again, this is a street engine that we are working on, so we really want to get good boost response, and to go along with that, we are also using a beautiful stainless steel exhaust manifold that we have sourced from Hypertune. So there are some known problems around turbocharger exhaust manifolds. One of them is with cracking, and in this case Hypertune actually cast the collector, so this ensures or improves the reliability of the collector. A lot of this also comes down to the Schedule 10 stainless tube that is used. It's a thick wall stainless tube, so it's much more reliable than thin wall stainless, albeit there is a weight deficit to take into account there. And in order to get the real true benefit of the split pulse housing, we do want the housing to be separated right up until the turbine wheel. And while there are a couple of ways around this, we can see that in this particular instance the exhaust manifold has been fitted with dual wastegates. This is quite a popular way of going about it with a T4 split pulse exhaust housing. So we've got one wastegate coming off each side of the exhaust manifold. So that does of course increase our complexity slightly, because now we need two external wastegates, and there's also the plumbing involved with that. For a street car here in New Zealand, we can't have the external wastegates dumping to atmosphere, which is quite popular in some countries. These actually do need to recirculate back into the exhaust pipe or exhaust dump off the turbo. So there is a bit of complexity there in our fabrication. So if you are interested in learning a little bit more about that car, about that project, what we'll do is just head across to my laptop screen for a moment, and this is the very first part of that build series where we're talking about the basis of this build project, what we're going to do, and analysing the strengths and weaknesses of the factory Nissan R32 GTR, as well as the first round of modifications that were planned. I'll admit we have been a little bit tardy on getting some updates out there, and as soon as we've got access to that car again, we will be filming a follow-up. So if you want to go and have a look at that video, head across to our YouTube channel, and under the search function on our channel, you'll be able to search for GTR. That video is a couple of months old now, so you have to scroll back a fair bit. Use that search function, will make it really easy for you to find, and as I've said, we're going to be having some more updates on that project, hopefully in the not too distant future. Now, while we are talking here about our YouTube channel, we do release new videos every week, and I just wanted to cover another video that we've just released. So again, on my laptop screen, Jono and I headed over to Pikes Peak earlier this year, around June this year, to help run the Highlands Motorsport Park Ford Focus that was running in the Unlimited class. I've already talked a little bit about this in some of our webinars to date. I think everyone who sort of hears about Pikes Peak, or particularly anyone who has an interest in tuning, will probably take into account that the very high altitude at Pikes Peak does cause us some problems around engine performance or engine power. Basically, the air density is so low that the amount of oxygen contained in a given volume of air excuse me, is much lower, and this means that it's harder for us to make power with our engines. So I think that's a given, and that's probably something that's pretty well understood. However, this being my second trip now to Pikes Peak, the aspect that is really easy to overlook is the effect on the car's cooling system. So this includes the radiator for the engine coolant, as well as the intercooler physically cooling down inlet charge air, and of course also the brakes and oil coolers. So basically, because we've got less air density, the airflow through all of those coolers on the car is less effective at removing that heat from the coolers. So you can take a car that works absolutely perfectly at sea level, or at least a lower altitude, take it across to Pikes Peak, and all of a sudden everything's overheating and everything's falling apart. So in this video we talk a little bit about that, and we also talk about some of the strategies that we implemented while we were over in Colorado Springs in order to do our very best with the limited time and components we had on hand to keep that temperature under control and make sure that the engine was going to stay in one piece across a run to the top that lasted a little bit under 10 minutes. So again, head across to our YouTube channel. That's one of the videos we've just released in the last week. Now, I just wanted to take a moment here and talk about a really special deal that we are running at the moment. This is our VIP deal, and we have done this a couple of times in the past. This is our way of raising capital internally so that we're able to expand our facility, and this allows us the ability to then produce more course content on a wider range of topics, which is going to allow us to help more people. Over the 5 years that we have been in business now, we've expanded our facility dramatically. It started with just Ben and myself, the two founders of High Performance Academy. Since moving to Queenstown, the demand for our courses has been through the roof, and we want to be able to reach as many of you as we can. We want to be able to provide courses on a really wide range of topics, all of the ones that you guys are constantly requesting from us. And for this reason, to date, we've expanded our team from 2 up to 8. So we've got 2 full-time videographers, we've got a permanent full-time customer services manager, we've got Alan, who helps out with our one-on-one dyno lessons, and we've also got a developer. Well, actually, at the moment, we're trying to refill that position, but we have a full-time web developer as well. So it's allowed us to get to where we are right now, but we want to go much further. So this is why we are reopening our VIP deal. So in short, the VIP deal is a one-time fee that you pay. In this case, it's $1,497 US, and this gives you complete access to our entire back catalogue of courses. So every course that we currently offer, you're going to get instant access to. The important point, though, is that while the current course schedule comes to about $1,850 US, so you're already getting a great discount on that. It's the future courses that we intend to produce that's where the increased value really comes from. So I'll just head across to my laptop screen and I'll just talk through this. So it's $1,497 US, as I said. And we are only offering a limited number of these. So you'll see that we've only got 47 left. We're selling 100 of them. So we're over halfway sold out already. So if you are interested, don't mess around on this. It's not going to be there for too much longer. So you're going to have to jump in and get there pretty quickly. So you also have the option, because we know $1,497 US is great value, but that is still a fairly large chunk of change. And we understand that laying down $1,500 US in one lump sum can be a little bit challenging. So we do have the ability for you to split that payment up. You can do it in either 2 or 3 payments over a total of 3 months, just to make it as affordable as we can. So as I've said, you're going to get access to all our current courses, which is $1,875 worth of value. You're going to get access to all our future courses. Conservatively right now with the courses we've got planned, that comes to about $2,400. You will be able to read on this link that the guys will put in the comments what those courses are going to be, the courses that we do have planned. Then the other aspect here is you're going to get lifetime access to our online private community. This is our gold membership that gives you access to these webinars you're watching right now, as well as our private members only online community, online forum I should say. So this really gives you more value the more you use it, and conservatively if we looked at that across 4 years of use, that gives you another $912 worth of value. Then we are also giving you a 1-hour lesson on our remote practice dyno. So this will be with our instructor Alan, and that lesson lets you put into practice all of the skills that you've learned by going through our courses. This is $199 worth of value, and then so that you can show your affiliation to the HPA brand, you're also going to get a t-shirt and sticker pack, which is valued at $49. So total value on that package, $5,500 and we are offering it for a very limited time and a very limited number for just $1,497. So again, there will be a link in the description that you can follow. If you want to learn a little bit more about that, go through and you can read about all of those courses that we have currently released, as well as all of the courses that we do have planned. And up the top as well, we've got a great little video where we succinctly tell you exactly what that VIP deal is. So remember, there are only 47 of those packages left. So if you do want to get in, you're going to have to do it pretty quickly. Talking about our courses as well, again, I've mentioned this over the last few weeks, but for those who are watching for the first time, we have just released another worked example that's tacked on to the end of our Practical Reflash Tuning course. So our Practical Reflash Tuning course, perfect for those of you out there who want to learn how to reflash factory fitted ECUs. This is a technique that's become much more popular on late model cars. So the later the car gets, the harder it is for us to physically remove the factory ECU and replace it with an aftermarket standalone ECU due to the reliance on the communications between all of the different electronic components in the car. So the course itself hasn't changed. It teaches you a step-by-step process that you can apply to reflashing any engine on a factory engine management system. We also will just go down here to our worked examples. We've got a bunch in there currently on HP tuners and EcuTech. We've also recently added one on Honda, and the one that we've just added here is on a 2014 Ford F-150. This is fitted with a 6.2 litre V8 engine that uses variable cam control. This one is also fitted with a Roush supercharger kit. So I've gone through this using the HP Tuners platform, and for those who are new to the Ford tuning world, the late model Ford ECUs are quite complex because they are a torque-based ECU. So there is a lot to learn, even if you're already familiar with reflashing on the likes of EcuTech or maybe Cobb, even open source, or maybe HP tuners. The way the Ford ECU works is quite complex, and we go through the basics of tuning this. This includes how to correctly rescale a mass airflow sensor. The Ford ECU also uses a speed density subsystem, and a little bit like the GM virtual volumetric efficiency system, this is all defined with quadratic equations, which makes it quite difficult for us because generally we can't visualize a normal speed density or volumetric efficiency table. So we see how exactly to deal with that. The other aspect that is quite complex in the Ford ECU is the fact that they have multiple torque tables as well as torque inverse tables. So we see exactly how to use the dyno in order to fill out those torque tables. Now, while the example is filmed on the 2014 Ford F-150, most of the concepts that are contained in this worked example also will translate quite nicely to some of the more modern Ford ECUs fitted to the likes of the current generation Ford Mustang, with either the Coyote Boss or the EcoBoost engines. So there's a huge amount of information in there. It is freely available to anyone who currently has our Practical Reflash Tuning course, so we urge you to go through that and have a look. If you are interested in purchasing the course, it is valued at $229 US. You'll get all of that information plus our library of worked examples, and again we'll put a link in the description there that you can follow if you are interested in learning a little bit more. Lastly, I'll also just talk about a brand new course that we've just released, which is from Zac, our wiring specialist. And recently Zac finished his wiring fundamentals course, and this was a theory-based course teaching you the fundamentals behind automotive wiring. This is going to be great information for anyone who wants to get involved with making their own wiring harnesses. However, the wiring fundamentals is the first step. This is just the tip of the iceberg and covers the theory behind it. Once we've gone through that, he's just created his brand new course, our practical wiring course, and this is our club level course. So this is designed for the average person who is looking at building a project car at home, maybe something that's going to be used in street use or club level motorsport. So we're not going too crazy here. We're not talking about concentric twisting. We're not talking about auto sport connectors. We're talking about normal techniques that are easy for you to learn, and the materials that we're using are cheap and easy to source. So this is one of the examples that he's created here. This is a wiring harness that is used in our first worked example that's contained in this course, and this is a harness that he has created for an FD3S Mazda RX-7. So you'll see from start to finish how this particular harness was designed, how it was planned out, and then you'll see each step of the construction process. So the course, our practical wiring course there is laid out with a general body of knowledge which goes through all of the practical skills that you need to understand in order to design and build any harness. So that's just a worked example. The body of the course is going to be applicable to absolutely any wiring project that you may be personally interested in. And then moving into our worked example, we start getting a little bit more specific. So obviously that one there is for our FD3S. All right, so we'll just head across to my laptop screen again, and if you are interested in finding this course, you're going to find it at the bottom of our courses page. So on our website, if you click courses on the top left and then you scroll all the way down here, you're going to see our practical harness construction club level, and then if you click on start learning, you're going to be able to learn all about that course. You'll find out exactly what is involved. This course is $229 US. It does build on the knowledge and skills taught in our wiring fundamentals course, so it's always a best place to start. You can also use our split payment system. It'll let you take it down to 8 individual weekly payments of just over $28 US a week. So again, we'll get a link in the description that you can follow if you want to learn more about that particular course. All right, so there you go, guys. That is what has been happening around HPA Labs over the last week.